You are watching What's Up Punta Cana with Christy Mayo, una americana italiana en la República Dominicana since 2013. A teacher at heart, but her curiosity has sparked new opportunities. Director, businesswoman, humanitarian, talk show host. La curiosa directora has decided to become the student. Go behind the scenes to get a closer look at what this country is all about. And Cher is here with you. So, if you love everything Dominicana, stay tuned. This is What's Up Punta Cana with Christy Mayo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What's Up Punta Cana with Christy Maggio. I hope everyone had a wonderful week. I know I did, and it has been busy and things have been crazy. However, concentration, focus, and perseverance gets you through everything, sprinkled with a little faith, or in my case, a lot of faith. On tonight's episode, I had the honor to interview Dr. Ana Olivero. Many of you may have seen her from the Facebook Lives that I usually do on Wednesday nights in the Facebook group United by Education. However, tonight, Dr. Olivero talks to us not about children returning to school or health concerns or other important topics that deal with children. Tonight, she's going to share with us her story, her life, and how she came to be the pediatrician that she is today. It truly is a fascinating story of what she overcame and what her family overcame throughout the history of the Dominican Republic. And after interviewing her, I truly am grateful that she shared this with me and is sharing this with you all, as it was not easy for her to do. It is a story of courage, tragedy, perseverance, loss, and sadness. But all of the struggles were not in vain. They mattered and they made a difference to the life and culture of this country and changed the future and path of Dr. Olivero and many, many others. So I bet you're intrigued. Wait till you hear it. It truly is incredible. So now, I would like to present to you Dr. Ana Olivero and the incredible story of this strong and amazing woman. I'd like to welcome you today to What's Up Punta Cana with Christy Maggio. We are here today with Dr. Olivero. How are you?
I am phenomenally well, thank you.
Very good, very good. And so you are originally from the Dominican Republic. And so whereabouts are you from? And what was it like growing up here?
Yes, I am from the Dominican Republic. My family lived in the south part of the island, specifically in a region that is not very well known by tourism, but I consider the most beautiful, which is Barahona. But we are more specifically on a town called Tamayo. That's where my family comes from. And it's like 10 minutes away from Barahona, or perhaps a little more, 20. Beautiful town. So we all grew up in there. I was born in Barahona, and I lived in Tamayo, I would say, the first 5 years of my life.
Wow. And what do you remember about there? Because I guess you wouldn't have been school aged yet. But what's a fond memory that you have of your childhood?
Well, I have so many fun and happy memories. I remember the house of my paternal grandmother. I remember the neighbors. I remember the love. I remember the coffee rounds in the afternoon with all the neighbors. We all sat for coffee. I remember the rose garden, and I was in charge of watering the roses.
So you were born in Tamayo. And then you said at the age of 5, you left and Tamayo, and you went and where did you go?
So my family moved to the capital. My mother decided that she needed to continue her education, so she went to college, basically to the capital, Santo Domingo. And I moved there with my family at the age of 5.
Okay, so you said at the age of 5, you left Tamayo,
Tamayo.
and you went with your family where?
We moved to Santo Domingo, the capital of the island.
Okay. And what was the reasoning for doing that?
My mother was single then with 2 kids and an extended family, and they wanted to have an education. My mother needed to complete her college studies, and the younger sister also. So for the best of our education and opportunities, the family moved to the capital, Santo Domingo.
Okay, wonderful. And so you, so your parents eventually got divorced then?
Yeah, my parents divorced very young. I don't even have memories of my mother being married to my father. I want to share this with you, Kristen. There was a tragic event in my family, and I think that event prompted what ultimately happened that shaped the future back then. I come from a family of many kids, so many, my grandmother had a lot of kids, and she really was focused on education back then. And she had 2 of her oldest kids that had already completed college. So in the family, there were 2 big promises. The firstborn, which was already an engineer with honors, and the second one was a resident in anesthesia. He was to be a physician, an anesthesiologist. And there was the big promise for our family were in these 2 people, in my uncles. But then the Civil War came into the Dominican Republic, and unfortunately, they were lost. They were not in the revolution. They were just trying to go back from the capital to Tamayo, but they were never found again, ever, to this day. They were the hope and the first college graduates of our generation, and we lost them like that.
And so then what was it after they were gone that prompted your mom to go to Santo Domingo, or was it before that you guys had ended up going to Santo Domingo?
It was after. So as soon as the Civil War of 1965, as soon as the Civil War finished, then it was time to migrate. It was time to start finding a new future for the family.
And so your mom kind of took it upon herself then to pick up and say, okay, well, I can do this too.
Yes, she was the older sister. So she took the younger sister. She took the 2 kids of her oldest brother. They were orphans back then. She took us, me and my sister, and there we go to Santo Domingo to start a new life. Yeah, she was now the provider of the family, and she took upon herself not only us, her 2 kids, but also her, the 2 kids of her brother who just died on the revolution or whatever happened, we don't know, and her younger siblings. And we moved to Santo Domingo.
And so when you went to, that's strength right there. And I can't even imagine what that was like for your mom, because that must have been very devastating, very difficult for her, for all of you. Mind you,
it was a promise, not only the loss. I mean, my uncle was the first person that I remember owning a car in that town. A town where people will go to the windows because they had never seen a car. He was, a valedictorian of his class, an engineer, and the promise of a whole family. And the other one was about to complete, medicine as an anesthesiologist.
Right.
It was a terrible loss for our family. It was time to have 2 jobs, and I have 5 kids with her younger sister, and a dream to become a teacher.
Wow. And so when she got to Santo Domingo, did she become a teacher?
Yes, she went to college. She became a teacher, and she was the family support. She was, the father, the mother, the provider, everything.
Did she love being a teacher?
Oh, she did. She loved being a teacher, and most of all, her students loved her. My mother was a teacher of humanity back then, and ethics, and also nutrition, believe it or not, and social studies. So teachers will have to teach many things.
Yes, that is true. I know how that goes. You adapt. So you get to Santo Domingo, you're 5, and I'm sure you enroll in school. And where does that course lead you?
Well, it was time of changes. I started my first grade in Santo Domingo, and I would go to school with my sister and my cousins, and then we will just get adapted to a new life. I loved being at school. I had an internal reward in learning. I was very interested in learning. However, at the same time, I was dealing not only with all the changes, but also with the political position of my family. So my other uncles, the younger ones, they were focused on education, as all my family, but they were also focused on ideas and views and political points of view that put them at risk of being persecuted. And that certainly happened back then. It was a very polarized situation. So my uncles, my mother's younger brothers, they were political figures, not from being allies of the government back then, but for being a stand for other ideas. And that's the environment that we grew up on. So that meant a lot of persecution, a lot of political conflicts that I remember as a child, because today, thank God, we have democracy. No child today is expecting the police to come with arms and everything you could possibly imagine. But I experienced that as a child because it was a time of unrest in my country, and my uncles were persecuted because of, I guess, they were political prisoners, and they imprisoned them also.
Did you experience that in your home?
Absolutely, all the times. One night, we will sleep full night, and one night we're gonna have 30 police officers in our homes with the big arms and everything. My uncle, Plinio Matos Moquete, he is legendary in my country from back then. And this is my mom's younger brother. And my other uncle, Manuel, he is also legendary for the political positions that they took. And back then, being against the main ideas was a death sentence. So they were political prisoners, period. Trujillo was killed in 1960. Then Juan Bosch came to power, democratically elected and he lasted 7 months. There was I don't know how to say this in English, it's like a golpe de Estado. A coup. There was a coup there, and then a transitional government came. The revolution came. We lost the two family members. They were not They were not in politics. They were professionals. And that tragedy happened, and then we moved to Santo Domingo, and then Balaguer comes in power. And then I come from a divided family. Let me put it this way. My uncles, the younger generation, they were against Balaguer and all the ideas that he represented. Mm-hmm. And my father's side, he was one of the Balaguer's most prominent political figures. So we grew up in that dichotomy. They were part of the new desire of the Dominican society to not live in a dictatorial political arena anymore after 30 years. They stand for democracy in my country, and they pay high prices for it. Mm-hmm. Many of them with their lives, which I remember, they were my little uncles as well. Right. So I grew up into that environment, and it was not an easy situation to live with.
You feel that shaped you as you got older? How do you feel that created who you became?
Well, I think I go to my family. I saw the resilience. I saw how we stood up from tragedy. I saw my uncles being in jail, incarcerated, and I saw my family supporting her brothers. Mm-hmm. I saw them come out, build their lives, get a diploma, a lawyer, and a Premio Nobel de Literatura. Like my cousin Manuel, he gained the Nobel Prize of the Dominican Literature 2 years ago. Manuel Matos Moquete, I don't know if you know him. So I see that on my family. I see the resilience, the commitment to education. I see how all these politicians in my country, they put themselves into the money game. And I'm so proud that my uncles never, ever played that game.
Yes, because it is a game that many people, and I think that it is something that most people go into politics, with the desire of doing something different or helping. And I think that in the end, there is that vacuum of greed and of certain things that they end up getting sucked into, the ideas of the corruption and the money. However, there are also those that, try very hard to make the changes. And, now that even here in the Dominican Republic, there's a new government, I'm really hoping that some of those things change, because it's really a horrible, horrible thing when you have millions and millions of dollars going into pockets that should be going towards, and my number one, education.
Yeah, it's been a horrible experience and a horrible example for our youth, for the children of our society, to see how, playing with toys that represent money is more important than integrity. And I want to really acknowledge the political members of my family, my uncles, because integrity has been their game since back then in the 60s until now. So I'm very proud to say that they have set an example for us that has nothing to do with this horrible game of stealing the money that belongs to the people.
There's a lot of people that don't want it to be that way. It's those that continue to fight and raise their voice and speak out, that really is what makes the change. However, unfortunately, as we know from this and from so many historical experiences, that unfortunately the price that is paid by many is a very heavy price because they end up paying with their lives. And
Absolutely.
that is the epitome of courage, and that is and strength, because they believe in making the society better for everybody, and they do it no matter what. And
Absolutely.
that's incredible.
You know, I have a very interesting story to share with you. Because of my father's position in the government, my father was one of the top leaders of the government. My father, a lawyer, he had a lot of benefits. You know, he was a political figure. He was the president of the Senate. So, and then that meant that I went to private school. I remember I grew up in a Catholic school, and it was a wonderful experience. However, the last year of my high school, 12th grade, for reasons that had everything to do with the choices that I made that were not the best choices, I could not complete the high school in this private school. And my mother had to take me to a public school. I had never been into a public school in the Dominican Republic. Now it was time for me to complete my education at a public school. And that was the best experience of my life. That year, in the public school, Instituto de Señoritas Salome Ureña, I really flourished. I really find my passion even more for education. And I graduated at the top of my class. And most of all, I realized that it doesn't really matter where you are. It matters where you choose to be. So I chose to be top of my class. And I was so happy that I had the opportunity to change schools.
What was it, if I can ask, that you, or the choice that you made, because we all make these choices, usually they're choices that we make that ultimately change for the better or the worse for our lives. But what was it that the choice that you made that you needed to leave that school and go to the public school?
Well, I was not an excellent student when I was in the Catholic school. I was dealing with the two worlds that I was living on, from my father's side and from your
mom's
uncertainty, the political situation with my uncles. That that the uncertainty of knowing if my mother was going to be incarcerated the next day or my uncles are going to be killed from the persecution. That was a very hard to deal with. So that's what happened. They were in the early Balaguer era opposition. They were activists. Many of them were killed or assassinated, and I knew many of them because I used to play with them as a child. But they continued to be activists. Okay. Then one of my uncles, he traveled. He left the country to get ready, and then he came back, and he came back with a false identity because he was an activist. And they caught him at the airport, and he went to jail for that, crime. And he was sentenced to 3 years. That's Manuel. That's el Premio Nacional de Literatura. No sabes si lo conoces, se llama Manuel Matos Moquete. Le dieron el Premio Nacional de Literatura el año pasado, por unanimidad, por primera vez en la historia dominicana. Entonces, él, cuando él regresó, a él lo apresan, le encuentran un pasaporte falso y lo apresan por 3 años. Mi otro tío, Plinio, estaba huyendo porque él era un prófugo ya de la justicia. He was an activist, an opponent of the Balaguer regime, and he was on the loose, huyendo. Eventually, después también agarran a Plinio y están los dos presos.
I understand they were both in jail.
They were in jail. Entonces, cuando Manuel cumple los 3 años, the one who came, with una identidad falsa, a Manuel, cuando nosotros estamos listos para recibirlo, lo deportan para Francia.
Wow. So they deported him to France after he served the 3 years in jail. Okay.
Yes. ¿Tú sabes quién es Camaño? El coronel Camaño. Él era un oponente a Balaguer, es parte de la historia dominicana. Ese coronel Camaño era el amigo de mi tío.
Okay.
Y esa fue una historia política, entonces a él lo deportan y mi otro tío se queda preso. 7 años.
So your other uncle was in jail for 7 years?
Sí, era el preso político más famoso de la historia dominicana. Se llama Plinio Matos Moquete.
Wow.
Entonces yo estaba ya tú sabes, no me portaba bien en el colegio. I was not giving my full potential.
Right. Because here you had on one, and wow, like here you had on one side your dad, who was the president,
one of the top Balaguer whatever
regime, and then on your other side you had the oppression of your uncles who were activists against that regime. Oh, I can't imagine why you didn't behave in school. Like
I was focused and fooling around.
Oh my God. Like, wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and then at the end, I was not accepted in my last year in the high school. They said, no, she cannot be accepted here. So,
wow.
That's how it happened.
Wow. I'm literally speechless right now. However, that moment of going to public school, I'm sure was completely different. Yet, for you, it's kind of a gift from God.
Well, the expectation was that it was going to be a setback. However, it was a liberation. I really got a blessing. I didn't have the constraints of the old school.
Right.
It was a fresh start for me.
Right.
It was a fresh start.
Being the daughter of that political figure, you had to probably be a certain way. You could only say certain things. You could only act a certain way. And you probably couldn't express your feelings at all.
It was, I don't even know. What I know, Chris, is I was the underdog. Single mother, not a lot of money. My father had already remarried. He has built another family. He was very famous and very powerful. And I was the underdog.
Right.
All throughout my infancy. But the moment that I went to this new school, I found a new path for myself and my life. And it was a blessing, an opportunity to start fresh from the public school where perhaps I belonged to since the beginning.
And so you flourish
your
senior year of high school.
Yes.
And at this time, were your uncles still was the one uncle still in France and your other uncle still in jail?
Yes.
And so after this happens, you do well. You're at the top of your class.
Yeah, it was time to choose a career. It was time to go to college. I had known since I was very young that my career was medicine. I had a passion for medicine, and there was no question. There was no psychological evaluation or counseling where you go, where you don't go. Right. When my mom asked it, I said, I don't need any of that. I'm going to be a doctor. And there I go. So I decided to go to my father's office. And he ran a very busy office. And I go there to speak with my father. And my father was very busy, so he would have a few minutes for me. He was a loving father, and I loved my father. I honor my father. But back then, I go there to tell my father that I was going to be a doctor. So I remember like now, my father was sitting at his desk. There was a full waiting room for him. And then he said, okay, what are you here? I said, okay, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to be a doctor. And I told him that I was going to be a doctor at the public university, which is the Universidad Autónoma de Santo Domingo. So when I disclosed to my father that I was going to be a doctor, my father stops what he was doing and he looks at me. And he did to me what I consider the hallmark of my future. So that's what my father said. He looks at me top to bottom. He puts a face like I was talking to him in another language. And he said, Doctor, tú? Tú, doctora? Like, are you going to be a doctor? Like, on his face, I had no chance to be a doctor. He doubted me 100%. And he let me know. Yes, he did. And he let me know.
Where did this great doubt come from?
Well, to this day, I don't know where it came from, but I know what it did for me. Certainly. Was the biggest gift I ever received.
So basically he's doubting that you're going to be able to do that.
Yes.
For you, something like a fire light inside of you and just say, you don't think so? Well, just watch.
That's what I really needed from him. And he gave it to me. And instead of being, resentful of him, I'm grateful.
Right.
Because he gave me the opportunity to find my passion, to show my passion, and to really believe on myself above and beyond what he or anyone could ever said. So I decided at that moment that I was going to be a doctor, and there was nothing he could do to prevent it. And that was a gift.
Yeah. And I think that's so important nowadays too, because there's so many children, so many young adults that look for the acceptance of their parents, but so many parents don't necessarily give that acceptance. And it's not because they don't love their children; they just do it in a way that they're just like, well, God only knows why. Nobody really knows why. Why wouldn't you believe in your child? And okay, if that's something that you would like to do, I support you. But a lot of times, instead of finding that inner strength within them, which we know that a lot of successful people in this world, those who were told no, that just pushed them more to say yes. And however, there are so many that are told, well, no, but then it ends up ruining their desire, their chance to move forward. And I think that's a very key lesson to be learned here today, is that if someone tells you no, then you say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I came to realize after that was my father's parenting style. I think he was not a father to entitle his kids. He was one who believed that you have to fight for what you really want in life, that whatever accomplishment he has made, he made it, and it was for you to make yours. And that was all there was. I think it was nothing to do with love, but everything to do with a parenting style that I think was tremendously beneficial for me.
So your dad did not pay for you to go to university?
He did. He supported me. My mother was a teacher on that university, so I had a lot of facility with the resources in the university. But Christy, I'm talking about this era. I finished my career with 2 books. That's all my mother could afford. 2 books. So I needed to take notes. So I was so good at taking notes in my notes that I will write the jokes that my teachers will put into the classroom. I wrote the jokes. So it was not that he didn't support me. It was that his attention was not in putting a red carpet so I could fulfill my dream.
Right.
Then he was focused on his life and his career and whatever he was doing.
Right. Mind you, it was you did need financial.
We needed it. My mother was single too. The brothers were incarcerating or, running so they're not killed. So, and then my mother had one job, and one day Balaguer says she was a professor, a teacher in one of the public schools. He fired her out of no reason with 6 kids, single mother, and there was no income. I grew up in this financial uncertainty. So when I was to college, I saw my mother and the needs. I said, listen, I'm going to work. I'm not going to take 7 years on this career. I'm going to do it in 6. I'm not going to take no breaks, and I'm going to work. One of the lessons that I learned that I share with my family, the parents and the families that I take care of, is we need to use our full potential. Mm-hmm. Many times as parents said, I don't want them to work because they are studying. Let them work. Right. It's the best thing that could happen. It was the best thing that could happen to a young person.
Yeah, I remember. And then myself, like even going through university, my mom helped me also. But I had 3 jobs. And, you're going to do it. And still, as you did, you work, you study, and that's the thing. I think that's really important is that you can make every excuse as to why you don't do or go or whatever. However, if you have the true desire and the true passion and the will to do it, you can do it no matter what.
Absolutely.
It's not easy.
No, it's not. But having, another thing, Chris, that I want to point out to our young people is, if I look back and I said, okay, I didn't have the responsibility to support my mother. I was in college. It's not my business. And you could look at it that way. But I said, okay, what about the muscle that you gain when you start being financially present, financially strong at a young age? When you're not a taker, but you start to become a giver. What is presented to you? It certainly did for me. I started working when I was 13, and I started paying my mother's bill when I was 17. And I am grateful. I think that had been something that had allowed me to grow.
As we all know, a lot of things, when it's just handed to you, you don't appreciate it quite as much as you do when you know that your blood, sweat, and tears went into what you have. You did that, and therefore, it's a whole different perspective when you know that I am here and I did this because I truly wanted it and I did it. And I said, no matter what it was, whatever hours you had to work, whatever time you had to study, whatever you did, it's really, really incredible. So you finish university. And you're all excited because you're like, I did it. But then you didn't do your residency there, correct?
No, I didn't. So I remember a friend of mine, and we were colleagues. We went to college together. He said, Anna, don't be in such a rush to finish college. It's hard out there. Stay here. Don't do it in 6 years. Take your 7 years. You don't know what is out there. But I was in a rush because I needed to finish, because I needed to work. I needed to break that poverty cycle that was all around me. I was determined to break it. Mm-hmm. So there I finished. I'm happy. I'm out in the world. And then I remember him because reality starts to show. So I needed a job. I just finished, and I was the daughter of this prominent political figure. But then I realized that with my diploma, young professional, it took me about 6 months with a high recommendation going to this head of the, you know, insurance hospitals to get a position. I already supposed to get my position, and it took me 6 months going there in the morning until 5 p.m. waiting for them to honor that position that I needed to start working and to continue to support my mom. It took me 6 months.
Wow.
And I was the daughter of a big figure. Remember, there was the other side of my story, which is my mother's side. We are opponents.
Right.
We are the opponents also. So for me, in my experience, it took 6 months, I think 4 to 6 months of constant. I will go there every day. And I knew that I was not going to stop until I get my position and my salary, which I did. Back then, it was clear for me, that for the best of my education, I needed to leave my country. I didn't see there an educational platform that I wanted to get myself trained on. So I've been a year in this hotel working. Everything was good financially. I was able to support my mother. And one day I learned that there was an advertisement in a newspaper for a scholarship in Brazil. They were offering a scholarship for Dominican doctors to do a specialty in Brazil. So that was a small advertisement. It was a Friday, and they were gonna give a test. You have to take a test. So I remember that.
In Spanish or Portuguese?
In Portuguese.
Oh, did you speak Portuguese?
Ever. I think that's a testament of what God has done into my life.
Right.
It's very clear to me. So I learned on this newspaper on a Friday that on Monday they're going to give this scholarship, but you're going to have to go take a test in Portuguese. So I decided that I was going to present myself to the test and take the test. And by God's grace, I passed the test.
Oh my God. That's just incredible.
Don't ask me what they asked me because I don't remember.
That's all the good Lord right there. That is. And obviously you, but I mean, that is just incredible.
Yes. So I won the scholarship. Months later, I am going to Brazil, Sao Paulo, where I did my first pediatric residency training. I trained at Escola Paulista in Sao Paulo for pediatrics.
Still in Portuguese?
Oh, everything in Portuguese, absolutely.
Yes. And you didn't know Portuguese?
Not at all.
Yes. I mean, I know Portuguese a little similar to Spanish, however, not exact.
Yeah, there are two different languages. You know, the pronunciation, the accent, we share the Latin roots, but it's two different languages. So I learned Portuguese when I went to Brazil, and I completed my residency training program at Escola Paulista.
See, wow, that right there, that is highly impressive. Highly impressive right there. I'm just amazed. So how long were you in Brazil?
I spent there near to 3 years. Okay. 3 years.
And after Brazil, is that when you went directly to the United States or no?
After Brazil, you know, it was time to return to my country. I had completed my residency training program. I was excited to go back to continue my training. I wanted to be in a teaching hospital, like a children's hospital.
Yeah.
And I spent a year on my country. I returned. I spent my year on my country. And after a year there, I realized that my educational journey was not complete. So I had a dream to be in a top academic institution. I needed the environment, the learning.
Right.
What I left in Brazil, I was dreaming to find that in my country. And after a year, I decided that I was not done yet with my education. So I head to the United States for the best of my education.
Right. And so then you went to the United States and you did a residency.
I did my second pediatric residency training at Stony Brook University Hospital in Long Island, New York. When I went to the Stony Brook University Hospital, when I started my program there for my second pediatric residency training, I was the only Spanish speaking in the program. It was a big program. It's a university hospital. And I had been the only second Spanish speaking person to go through this program. The prior one was a lady who was born here. She was Puerto Rican, but I was the first one born outside of the United States. And I not only was a trainee, a resident, I was also an official translator, because the community of people that were there, Spanish speaking parents. So I really became the translator of these families. I remember being in the ICU, dealing with catastrophic news, and how I had to be the translator for my professors, for my attendings, to translate for these families. So that presented both a huge challenge and a huge opportunity. The challenge was to deal with the suffering of kids, to have to, translate this news for these families, because they were seriously ill kids. When they get to us, it's because it was a tertiary hospital.
Right.
And the opportunity was to learn and to experience and to develop a connection and a relationship with a community of Spanish-speaking people. When I finished, my family was already here. My older sister was here. I was married to an American, so it was time to come back to New York, because I trained in Long Island. So I decided to come back, and I did. I came back. I got a job at one of the emergency rooms in one of the Bronx hospitals. It was a hospital affiliated to Montefiore Albert Einstein, North Central Bronx, and I started there as a pediatric emergency room physician. I worked there for about 5 years in the emergency room, and that, I wanted to hold that position because I wanted to complete my education and my experience. When you do residency training programs, you really get very comfortable with the kid that needs preventive care, well visits, sick. But I felt that I needed to be able to deal with the kid that has needs for emergencies.
Right.
So I took that position, and it was a pleasure to work with kids that are seriously ill in the Bronx. I had that opportunity in the North Central Bronx, from all kind of things. I was able to work in the emergency room and develop that part of me as a pediatrician, not only when a child is happy and you're going to give a vaccine, but when a child is being hit by a chest and is unconscious.
So where in this process of your life did you learn English?
Well, I learned, you remember the year that I spent in the Dominican Republic when I went back from Brazil?
Okay.
I took a year of English. I would take like 3 or 4 hours intense English courses. After work, I will spend just a year learning English.
How long have you been with Ola Pediatrics, and what do you find is the most important thing that you're currently doing in pediatrics at the moment?
Well, let me just go back a little bit. So after 5 years of doing emergency room, all my night shifts since I was 17, I went to medical school, was starting to feel a little tired. And I just dreamed of having a normal life for my son. He was young then. And I spent 2 more years. I went to Columbia Hospital and I worked there as an attending for 2 years in the pediatric emergency room also. So after 7 years, I said, well, you know what? I want to be in a 9 to 5. I want to be able to come back home. And I was also tired because it's very intense to work in the emergency room environment. So I decided that I wanted to have more of a community kind outpatient. And I also decided that with the knowledge that I had acquired, I was ready to go and start my own clinic. So I did that in 2004. And my vision when I started Ola Pediatrics was to offer my knowledge, my experience, and to really work with the children that came from the same background that I came from. There was no doubt on my head that I was going to go and serve any other community.
So you opened Ola Pediatrics, and now today, I mean, that was, you said that was in 2004, and so today is 2020, almost 2021. So that's I can't count right now. 16 years ago. Like, let me do the math in my head here. How have you grown and changed over the course of those years? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you've gotten bigger. You serve a whole community now, and you also work as a part of Somos, right? So tell me about that.
So, well, I started in my office, and I will still hold a part-time position in the hospital and in the emergency room. And then, it took my office, my clinic took time to grow, but I really experienced what it's like to take care of a child and one family, and then this family brings 2 or 3 or 5 more members. And we start growing slowly until there was a time that I think in about 2 years or 18 months that I could no longer take care of the clinic and my patients and still going and do the nights to the hospital. So it was a time to choose, and I really decided that I was going to stay with my clinic. And that had been a constant growing. We spent a few years, then we moved to a new place. We built a brand new office, and we have grown tremendously. I had the opportunity and the privilege to build an office with the same people that built the luxury office of Columbia Hospital in the east side of Manhattan. So I want them, my patients, when they come to my office, to feel that welcoming environment. And we have been able to create it for them. So we are there providing the services, really advocating for families, and continuing to be a medical home. And a medical home is a place where you go for your needs. Right. So it's been quite a journey. And then along this journey, I found Dr. Kalash. Back in 2001, I was working, I was holding a position briefly as a community pediatrician, and he came to me and he wanted it for us, the doctors, to join together and form a group of doctors that wanted to be independent, that wanted to expand in the community, and we want to have a stand by ourselves and being able to negotiate and then I signed up, I said yes, and we've been together ever since. And if I look back, I couldn't in a lifetime imagine that we are going to be where I'm here today, thanks to the labor of so many people, but especially to the leadership of Dr. Ramon Talash.
Wow. That's amazing. It really is amazing. And the work that you do and all of the people that you support and support you also.
Absolutely.
It's really a team effort, no matter how you look at it. So how often do you get to come back to the Dominican Republic?
Usually at least once or twice a year. For more than 15 years, I would go back to Dominican Republic in humanitarian health missions, traveling with the Catholic Church, Father Kearney, leading these medical missions where I had the opportunity, the chance, the privilege, the pleasure to see hundreds of kids and to establish a connection with them. And then later on, with Dr. Ramon Talash, through the organizations that he founded, either the Corinthian Medical IPA or Somos, every year we will go and we do these huge humanitarian missions with dental, medical service, pediatrics, surgery, pharmacy. I've been honored to travel with them for more than 15 years. And at least twice a year, I have the chance to go back to my roots, my people, my Quisqueya la Bella.
I agree. It's been so wonderful sharing this. I'm very honored that you shared this with me today, your story, and it is truly an inspirational story for so many different levels. That it's an inspirational story, whether it is a young person out there trying to become a doctor themselves and not knowing how to do it, or whether it's someone out there trying to get their voice heard because they really want to make a change in the world that they live in or the country that they live in. And I think that was a bonus for this interview for anybody that, is worried or doesn't speak out or doesn't feel that they don't want to go against what their society or wherever they live right now is facing, and the freedom of speech and the ability to speak out and stand up for what you believe in is very important. And I think that we also got to learn that with you today. So I'm really appreciative of that. I really, truly am. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you, Christy.
And next time we see each other, well, I mean, we've never actually met in person. But we're going to have to go out and get some bachata.
Oh, I was taking classes.
Oh, good.
Have you taken classes, Christy?
No, I haven't taken classes, but I need salsa classes.
Christy, this is the most fun time that I've ever experienced is taking these bachata classes. Listen, it's like, 10 females, 10 males. And then you go ahead and you go around and you taste all the flavors of dancing. Oh, this is wonderful.
So I want to thank all our listeners for tuning in tonight. If you would like to see this interview, you can go to the What's Up Punta Cana with Christy Maggio YouTube channel to actually see the interview that I did. Always tune in on Fridays at 8 p.m. and play it again on Sunday at 8 p.m. Have a great week, everyone. I will be back again next week with What's Up Punta Cana with Christy Maggio on Punta Cana Hits.